President, you please be seated. The chamber is now back in session, and we hear the testimony of civil party to TCCP 1063. Before we hear the testimony of the civil party, the chamber note that the civil party is part of the ongoing investigation, and the OCIJ classified the civil party in category A in its memorandum, that is E 319/35, and therefore we should use the pseudonym for this civil party in order to keep the confidentiality of the ongoing investigation. And the chamber concur with this decision, but the instruction from the OCIJ need to be balanced between the integrity of the investigations and the public discussion of the hearing. Therefore, the chamber would like to instruct parties to stick to this principle. Court officer, please assist civil party to TCCP 1063 into the courtroom. President, good afternoon, Mr. Civil Party. In this proceeding before the chamber, based on the request by the international co-investigating judge, we will use only the pseudonym to address you, and your pseudonym is 2 TCCP 1063. And generally, parties, including the chamber, address you by only civil party. Therefore, please be informed that parties will not be allowed, including the chamber itself, will not be allowed to use your name during the proceeding. Court officer, please take document this document. President, is document E3/10670A that the chamber instructed the court officer to take to the civil party. Mr. Civil Party, the chamber would like you to have a look and confirm about your identity in the document. E3/10670A with Khmer EON 003976 English EON 0042992000. The interpreter did not get the EON number. And please have a look at the highlighted part. We give the number is E3/1067/0A. Mr. Civil Party, please have a look at the highlighted part in orange, whether the surname, your name and place of birth, date of birth, your occupation, your father's name, your mother's name, your wife's name, and the number of your children, and your address, whether these information are correct. You simply tell us whether the information is correct or not. You don't have to provide the or read out the identity that we have highlighted. You simply confirm to us whether it's correct or not. Answer: yes, they are correct. President, thank you. Mr. Civil Party, in your testimony today as a civil party, in the proceeding in front of the chamber, at the end of your testimony, the chamber will give you the opportunity to tell about your suffering and impact of your suffering during DK regime. And we would like to remind you again that pursuant to Internal Rule 91 bis, the chamber gives the floor to the lead co-lawyer for civil party first before other parties. And the lead co-lawyer for civil party together with the co-prosecution have 2 sessions to put questions to the civil party. You may now proceed. Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to seek your permission to give the floor to Counsel Christina. President, yes, your request is granted. Christina. Tisrina. Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, Your Honors and parties. Good afternoon, Mr. Civil Party. My name is Tisrina. I will put a number of questions to you. Due to my observation that you have some problem with hearing, so if you cannot hear my question clearly, please let me know. President, court officer, please adjust the sound or the volume for the civil party. Please continue. Tisrina, thank you, Mr. President. My first question is that during Tribunal regime, where were you and your family living? Answer: during Tribunal regime, I lived in Svay province. Rather, Svay provincial town. At that time, I was a loyal soldier. Question. What about the numbers of your family members? Answer. Altogether, we had 8 family members, including my father, my mother named Sok Nyep, my brother named Sok Pel, my sister's name Prip Thon, my brother's name Prip Chien, my sister's name Prip Tâm, and me, my name Prip Chon. Question. Thank you. I would like to remind you that since your name is protected, therefore from now on, please avoid using your real name. You simply address yourself by the word I. That's it. During that regime, how old were you and what was your occupation? Answer. At that time, I was 25 years old. And I was a farmer. Later on, I was recruited to join the Lonol's army. Question. When you joined the Lonol's army, what division was it and where was you based? Answer. When I was a Lonol soldier, I was in division 410. I was based at the edge of Svay Rieng, to the south of Svay Rieng province. Question. What about on 17 April 1975, when DK troops arrived? What were you and your family doing, and what happened to you and your family? Answer. Thank you. Allow me to tell. In 1975, on 17 April, the Khmer evacuated me from Svay Rieng, from Svay Rieng provincial town, to Tachay commune, Kampong Chamlong district of Svay Rieng province. At that time, the Vietnamese soldiers forced people to leave the provincial town immediately, because the Khmer soldiers had informed that people, including elderly people, had to leave the city within 2 or 3 days in order to allow the soldiers to sweep clean the enemy. At that time, I and my family, along with other people, left our house immediately. We did not bring any much belonging with us. We had only very few belongings with us, because we were forced to leave, because they said that if we rejected or opposed, we would be shot dead. And an elderly man walked in front of me and walked with difficulty, because the person was very old and he was shot dead by the Vietnamese soldier. I was evacuated to Tachay village, Kampong Chamlong commune, Svay Chrum district, and I was there for about 1 month. For 1 month, they started to take my brother away for study session at Wat Kruh or Kruh Pagoda, because they accused my brother of being a Lonol soldier. When my brother was taken away to study, in fact, he was not taken to study. He was taken away to be killed. He disappeared since then. And later on, about half a month later, the Khmer took my father to study at the J Pagoda because they alleged my father of being a combatant, but in fact he was an innocent civilian. He was simply equipped with the weapon to help guard, but they accused him of being a military man. I was remained at that place, and about half a month later, they called me to go to study at Wat J or J Pagoda. And when I went to study there, some of the people who held prior positions, including soldiers or military men or other positions, were taken to be imprisoned there, and there were around 500 of them who were imprisoned there. I was imprisoned there, and during my imprisonment, I was assigned to work very hard. And we did not have enough food to eat. During each time of meal, they gave 2 tins of rice for a group of 10 people. And we ate with complout soup. I was forced to work hard. For example, to dig canals and to dig streams and to carry woods to the kitchen hall. They use people's labor like animals. I was shocked and suffered a lot at that time. During my imprisonment, the warless imprisonment, I remained imprisoned for 9 months. And during these 9 months, I remained in the prison, and then later on I was released along with other people whose names I cannot recall now. I cannot recall them all. My father and I was allowed to join families at our respective cooperatives. Tisrina, thank you. I would like to get your clarification a little bit, because a while ago you said that on 17 March, rather 18 March. So I would like to get your clarification whether you were evacuated on 18 March or 17 April. Answer, my apology, I got confused. In fact, it was on 17 April. Question, you said that it was the Vietnamese soldiers who forced you to leave. So could you clarify whether it was the Vietnamese army or it was other armed groups? Answer, I was also confused. In fact, it was the Khmer soldiers who evicted us from our homeland. Question, before I move to the scope of our fact, I would like you to ask about the Kong Svai Tran or militia. Where did this group belong to? I mean, which side they belong to? Answer, Kong Svai Tran or the militias refer to the Lunal's side or Lunal's force refer to the people who were at the rear battlefield. They were equipped with guns in order to guard their locality to prevent the Khmer Rouge from entering the provincial town. They had no salary. But the Khmer Rouge accused them of being providing help to the regime. Question: because the fact focus on your evacuation, but it's also related to the roles of the accused. So now allow me to go straight into the facts. So I would like to ask you whether you have heard or seen any of DK's leaders. Answer. During DK regime or the Khmer Rouge period, when they evacuated me from Svay Rieng to Chba Amper Market, and at Chba Amper Market I met Khieu Samphan. On the third day, he came to distribute materials, for example, clothes, rice, for us to continue our journey by train to the southwest. Question. Thank you. I also would like to get your clarification. You said that you met Khieu Samphan. Where did you meet him, and what year was it? Answer. I met him in 1977. It was at the time I was evacuated from Svay Rieng, and we spent time at Chba Amper Market where we took a rest, and over there I met him. He came to distribute clothes and other equipments. Question. I would like you to elaborate on the events or aspects related to the location or the subsequent events surrounding the time that you met him. Answer. At the time I met him, regarding the surrounding environment where I stayed, the nearby houses were quiet. There were no people residing there. There were only the evacuees. The evacuees were placed at the market, and there were many of them. I cannot give you the estimated number. We were all assembled in the market, and we were waiting for vehicles to come and pick us up to the train. Question. You said that there were many people. Can you tell us where they came from, based on your observation? Did you know where they came from? Answer. To my knowledge, all of them came from the east. They came from កំពង់ចាម ស្វាយរៀង and ព្រៃវែង provinces. Question. At the time you arrived, you were assigned to sleep right in the market or somewhere outside the market? Answer. I was assigned to sleep in the market with other people. The space of the market was large enough to accommodate the people. We slept close to each other. Question. Before I get to the details about aspects in the market, I would like to get your clarification because in a number of documents there was information that were discrepancy from the information you have just given. Mr. President, please allow me to use a document in order to ask the civil party. It's a supplementary information form. It's the victim information form D5/545 with EON 00397758 in Khmer language and English 00422204 and another document related to the supplementary information form that was made in 2010, also in case 002. It's E3/5932A. In Khmer 00905784, English 01332268, and another document is E3/10670. Eon in Khmer 01118429, English 01190623. For the three documents, they exist only in English and Khmer languages. They don't have a French language yet. Mr. President, please allow me to use the documents in order to ask questions to the civil party. President, yes, your request is granted. Kong Samon, I heard that she mentioned D5/45. I would like to know whether the document exists in E3 or not. Tisrina. The documents that I mentioned all exist in case 002.
Its original number is D22/194 or E3/10768, says the civil party lawyer. In the victim information form that you fill in, President, it is unclear to me. You refer to E3/10678. What is it? Lawyer for civil party, the document, the 5/545, is originally document D22/194. And it is designated an E3 number, that is E3/1 E3/106708. I apologize, Mr. President. It's A. That is the end letter of that document number. President, that is the correct one. Please proceed. In the victim information form that I just mentioned, and that I made a mistake in reference to the document number, in one of the sections of the document, you stated the following information: that we were instructed to board a ship throughout the night, and we arrived at Psat early morning, and we were allowed to rest there. And in another document, that is your supplementary information form at EN in Khmer 00905784, and English is at 01332268. You state the following: we boarded a ship to Phnom Penh, and when we arrived in Phnom Penh, we arrived within the vicinity of Chba Ompu, where we were provided with clothes. And in a bracket, you might mention Kill Sampon. And in another document, which is another supplementary information form in another case besides case 002, at Khmer EN 0111842 English 01190623, you mention the following: the ship departed at 12 midnight and arrived at Psat at 10 in the morning, next morning. And a while ago, you testified that you made a trip to Chba Ompu. So what is your reaction to the discrepancies in your previous statements? That is, you arrived at one point you said at Chba Ompu, while at the other point you arrived at Psat May. Answer: yes, that's my statement. But at the time I did not know Phnom Penh. I did not know its specific location, and when I was asked, I said that it was Psat May. But when I realized later on that it was Chba Ompu market, because that market was located near a bridge and a river. And I again would like to say that at the time I did not know Phnom Penh. That's why I made that mistake. Question: so, which is the statement that you stand by at the Psat May, that is Central Market, or Psat Chba Ompu, or Chba Ompu Market? Answer: I stand by the statements that I arrived at the Chba Ompu Market. Question: in order to clarify this matter, I'd like to ask you some information in relation to that specific location, in order to make sure that it is Chba Ompu market. So, from your recollection, upon your arrival, can you tell the chamber whether the market was covered with a roof? Answer: the market had a roof, but it did not have any wall. and in fact it was an open wall, and when we arrived we rested in that market. It had no concrete wall, however there was a concrete floor. Question. So you said the market had a roof, and what was the roof made of, and what was its color? Answer. It was a zinc roof, and the color was white. Question. Do you recall the size of the market? How big was the market? And please try to recall whether there were many stalls in that market. Answer. At that time there were stalls, however it was to the size of the market, and inside the market itself it was an open space, and that was the reason people were instructed to rest there, and there were no partitions. It was an open space. Question. How far was the market from the river? Answer. It was not that far. It could be between 50 to 100 meters away from the market, from the river. Question. And Mr. Civil Party, did you know the area called Net Luang? Answer. As for Net Luang, yes, I knew Net Luang, because we arrived at Net Luang at one point and we stopped on the eastern bank. Question. So the market that we are talking about is not the market that was located at Net Luang? Answer. No, it was not a Net Luang market, because at Net Luang when we got off we were at some concrete houses, and it was to the north part of National Road number 1. Question. And how far was the market from the bridge? And answer. Allow me to ask for clarification. Which market are you referring to? I'm getting confused now. Question. I'd like to refer to Chiba Ampo market. That is the market that you just mentioned. How far is that market from the bridge? Because you just mentioned that it was close to a bridge and a river, and you also stated that it was over 50 meters from the river. So, in relation to that market, that is Chibampo market, how far was it from the bridge? Answer. It was less than 100 meters from the bridge. Question. Regarding the bridge that we refer to, was the bridge broken, or could you travel across that bridge? Answer. At that time, the bridge was passable because there were Khmer Rouge soldiers who were guarding that bridge, and the bridge was not damaged. Question. And why did you know that the market was known as Chiba Ompo market? Answer. I refer to it as Chiba Ompo market because I learned it from other people who had come before me, and when they said that it was a Chiba Ompo market, I also use it. Question. Now I move on to another topic that is in relation to the presence of Khieu Sampon in that market. Do you recall the day that Khieu Sampon was present in that market? What time was it? Was he by himself, or were there people who accompanied him? Answer. On that day, Khieu Sampon came at around 8 o'clock in the morning. He came with some of his colleagues, and there were about 10 of them, although I did not count the exact number. So his working group accompanied him so that he could talk to the people there. Question. Allow me to clarify it once again. It seems that you knew pretty sure that it was Khieu Sampon. How did you know that the person who distributed the materials was Khieu Sampon? Answer. I made the claims that he was Khieu Sampon because I used to watch a film before I was evacuated. Soldiers showed the film at our village, and I saw him in the film, and people who knew him said that that was Khieu Sampon. That's why I am certain that it was Khieu Sampon. I knew him from that film that I watched. Question. A while ago, you stated that Khieu Sampon arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning with over 10 of his colleagues. Could you describe the event surrounding his initial arrival? For example, what happened after he got into the market? Could you please elaborate on this point, that is after he got off his vehicle? Answer. When Khieu Sampon arrived at the market, people were instructed to line up in order to listen to his speech and to receive him. So we were instructed to stand in a row to attend that meeting. And when he arrived, he made a speech. And I also made mention of parts of his speech a while ago. He said that we made a revolution in order to eliminate the colonial regime. And another point was to eliminate the capitalist, the feudalist, the intellectuals. he didn't want them to exist. That's what he meant in his speech. He made mention of many other points, but I cannot recall them. I only recall the main content of his speech. Question. Before Khieu Samphan went to the market, was there any other group of individuals who had come before him in order to make the arrangement on the ground to receive him? Answer. I did not pay attention to that, and suddenly he arrived. And it was not a major event, it seemed. His group simply arrived. Question. And can you tell the way Khieu Samphan dressed that day? Answer. Khieu Samphan wore black clothes, and he had a blue scarf around his neck, and he had a car tire sandal. And from what I could see, the sandal was made from good quality car tire. His work group wore the same black clothes. Question. A while ago, you just mentioned that you were instructed to stand in rows. Did you yourself stand in a row? And what was your position? How far were you standing away from where Khieu Samphan was? Answer. We were instructed to stand in rows in that market. There were so many rows, and I cannot recall in which row I was, since there were many people. And I was not at the front row, I was in the middle row, and I was about 20 meters away from where he was. It could be between 15 to 20 meters. I was not at the front row. Question. You just made mention too that Khieu Samphan spoke to the people there in the market. Before he spoke, was there anyone who made a speech, for example, an opening statement to announce the arrivals of the delegates? For example, usually there would be someone who would make an introduction. Was there such an arrangement at the time? Answer. Yes, there was someone who made the announcement that Khieu Samphan had arrived, but I cannot recall the position of that person. It happened so many years ago. Question. The person who made the announcement of the arrival of Khieu Samphan, did the person speak without using a loudspeaker, or did the person use a loudspeaker, since it seems that the crowd was pretty large? Did the person use a loudspeaker to speak to the people in the market? Answer. Yes, the person who made an announcement had a microphone. If he spoke without the microphone, then not everyone could hear it. Question. What about Khieu Samphan? Did Khieu Samphan use a microphone when he made his speech? Answer. Khieu Samphan also used a microphone. If he did not use microphone, we could not hear him. Question. After Khieu Samphan made his speech, how long after were materials distributed to the people? That is, after he spoke. Answer. After Khieu Samphan made his speech, that is about 10 minutes after, then they distributed the material. However, it was only as a symbolic gesture, as only about 10 to 20 families received those materials, and after that his work groups distributed those materials to other people. President, I am not familiar with the word you use, that is a microphone. Can you be more specific? Because in the Khmer term we use the word loudspeaker, of course, and not the microphone. Or maybe the lawyer for civil party understands it more well or better than me. So please, civil party, could you clarify it? Civil party. The microphone that he used was a battery operating microphone, and at present people still use such microphones. President, can you show the size of that microphone by using your hand? Answer. That's the size of the speaker. It's about 1.5 to it's about 15 to 20 centimeters inside. As for the length, it was about 40 to 50 centimeters. President, lawyer, you may proceed. Lawyer, thank you, Mr. President. Question. You said that regarding the distribution of materials, it was a symbolic gesture, and what you mean by that, and how many people actually received the distribution in this symbolic gesture? Answer. Because if he were to distribute material to everyone, it would take a long time. For that reason, only a selected number of people received distribution, and there were about 10 to 20 of them. And later on, his work groups would distribute those materials to everyone. Question. Were you among those 20 people? Answer. Yes, I was amongst them. Question. So, you were one of the 20 people who went up to receive the donation or distribution directly from Khieu Samphan. Am I correct? Answer. Yes, that's what I meant. Question. What did you receive at the time? Answer. The distribution that he gave was a rice package, and if a family had 5 members, then they would receive 5 package of 5 packages of rice, and each person received a set of clothes. As for women, it will be a skirt and a shirt, and each will receive a scarf or a krama. And the shirt was mainly black in color, but not all was black. As for the scarf or krama, it was blue in color. We also receive pregola or ointment, and also we received a small package of medicine. Question: after you receive the distribution, what happened to you and other people in the market? Answer: after we received the distribution, we were instructed to board vehicles in order to go to the railway station. Question: how did you travel from Chabampo market to the railway station, and how long was it? Answer: from where we boarded the vehicle to the railway station, I cannot estimate the distance. However, it took more than an hour to arrive at the station. Question: this may be my last question regarding the speech made by Khieu Sampon in the market. Can you try to recall his exact words that he used? Answer: after he arrived, he told the people there that we make the revolution in order to topple the Tribunal regime, because Tribunal was the one who opposed the revolution. And another point was for us to oppose the capitalists, feudalists, and intellectuals. And later on, he said, in our revolution, we would not allow to have different classes of people, that is the rich and the poor, and that everyone would be equal. He also gave some advice that Angkar evacuated us in order to get away from the Yun invaders, that they were concerned that the Yun invaders would kill us. For that reason, we were evacuated out of their claw in order to go to the southwest zone. As at the time, sometimes they encroach through portions of the border. And another point of his advice is that when we arrived in the southwest, that is in Battambang, that we all should respect the party's lines, that is, should respect the party lines strictly, and not to betray the party. And if we betray the party and the party know it, then we would be killed, because such people would be no use to keep. He spoke on many other points, but I cannot recall them because it happened so long ago.
Question. Thank you. I have a small point which I would like to ask you and backtrack to the earlier part. You said that you were imprisoned in Swai province. So I would like to know why you were imprisoned there. What was the reason of your imprisonment? Answer. I was imprisoned because they accused me of being a loyal soldier. At that time, I was really a soldier, but later on I quit the army and became a civilian. At that time, I was encouraged to join the Kong Swai Tran or militia, just like my father. And they accused me of being in that role. And the imprisonment condition was very unacceptable because we could not even sleep because there were many bugs and bats over there. And there were 500 people being imprisoned there, and each of us was bitten by the bats and bugs. And the work conditions was also very heavy, and the food was inadequate. Question. I would like to get your clarification whether you were tortured or not. Answer. At that time, they did not torture me, for example, like cuffing or beating, but they used us to dig canals and to pull the carts. They did not tie us up or beaten me. And during the interrogation, they also did not tie me up. They asked me about my roles or position. And they said that if we held any position in the previous regime, we would be given the same position. Some of the prisoners told the truth, while others concealed. And they kept on investigating to find our background. And they found that once I was a soldier. Question. Thank you. Can you tell us how many people who were imprisoned with you? And were all of them loyal soldiers, or they held any other positions? Answer. All the 500 people imprisoned with me, among them 30% of them were soldiers, and militiamen were about 30%, and the rest were civilians and students, university students. They were also detained there. Question. During your imprisonment there, were there any arrests or disappearance? Answer. During my disappearance, during my imprisonment, one day I heard gunshots. The prisoner did not dare to get out of the dining hall of the pagoda, The shooting took place at the edge of the pagoda along the road. And in the morning, we went out to see. And they threatened us, and we felt terrified. They allowed us to go and see the killing site. We saw many dead bodies. They allowed us to see those dead bodies, and then we were told to go back. And they told us not to run away. If we ran away, we would be shot dead. Each day there were 1 or 2 people taken away, and they were killed on a small hill to the east. The hill was about 1 kilometer away from the prison. At that time, I was evacuated to live to the north of the village. I noticed that there were subsequent disappearance of the prisoners, but we did not dare to ask each other about those disappearances. Later on, we were aware that those who disappeared had been taken away to be killed. They were killed at various pits. Question. Beside you, as a Tribunal soldier, did you have any other members of your family who were also a Tribunal soldier? Answer. I have my brother-in-law named Sopal. He was a soldier. I served in the army for 3 months, and then I quit. My father was simply a civilian. Question. Your brother named Sopal, who was a soldier, what happened to him? And what happened to his family? Answer. My brother named Sopal, he had problem. His family also had problem. He was taken away to study and he disappeared. His family were also evacuated to Prey Veng along with my father. And according to information that we received from people who were evacuated along with them, that when they arrived in Prey Veng, they found out that my sister had a husband who was a Tribunal soldier, and as a result, my sister was taken away to be killed at Koh Dach, or Dach Island. And her mother-in-law told me that they were taken by boat, and when they arrived at a place where they had a net, they drowned them in the net, in the river. We were shocked to hear that. And as for my father, he was sent from Piem Ancho to Bach Chanh Chien, and he died at Bach Chanh Chien. Question. Allow me to clarify. You said that your brother-in-law named Sopal was sent to study. You know the reason why he was sent to study? Answer. The reason was that he was a soldier, a Tribunal soldier. Counsel, thank you. I have no more questions to put to you. Thank you for your detailed answers. And thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you. Now the floor is given to the co-prosecutor.
Good afternoon, sir. Just a few questions. One quick question. Were you married during the Khmer Rouge regime?
Answer. I got married since the Tribunal regime.
Okay, so you did not have a marriage arranged during the Khmer Rouge, the DK regime, Democratic Kampuchea regime. Is that correct?
I did not get married during Khmer Rouge period.
Thank you. A couple of questions about what you've told us about the speech that Khieu Samphan gave. You were coming from where when you arrived in Phnom Penh? Where had your journey begun?
President, please hold on. The floor is given to Madam Counsel.
Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. President. In view of the question put by the co-prosecutor, I reiterate my objections of this morning. Of course, we have before us today a civil party who is in a position to talk about his sufferings in its statement of sufferings, but I see that the co-prosecutor is beginning to put questions on population movements within the framework of 1977 outside of population movements which are not part of this case 002/02. So these facts that he is referring to are outside of the scope of this trial, so I object to this question. And for purposes of clarity, may I point out that at the hearing of the 8th of September 2007, the Deputy Co-Prosecutor Vincent de Ville had pointed out shortly before 11 hours 5 and 9 seconds that the reason for the appearance of the civil party is to simply talk about the speeches of Mr. Khieu Samphan. And let me quote what he said. This testimony is all the more so short, and what is of interest to us is the speech delivered by Khieu Samphan. So half a day for all the parties would even be sufficient, end of quotes. In light of this, to put questions to the civil party regarding where he was coming from, whereas the deputy prosecutor has circumscribed the segment on which the civil party was called to testify, appears to stray out of the scope of this trial, and that is why I object.
Honor to answer. First of all, we haven't asked for more time than the 2 sessions allocated, and if I'm allowed to proceed without too many interruptions, I promise we will finish within the time allocated. Secondly, regarding the third forced transfer, paragraph 37 of your scope decision, that is E301/9/1, you mentioned that Phase 3 will be addressed to a certain extent in Case 2.2 through the inclusion of S21 and internal purges, which are closely related to this particular phase of population transfer. Furthermore, the question I'm asking this witness deals directly with the speech of Khieu Samphan. To understand and put in context Khieu Samphan's words, we have to understand the group that he's speaking to. It's absolutely critical in our view to understand the context that this was a group already under suspicion because they were Easterners being transported from the East to another zone. And you cannot understand Khieu Samphan's words unless you understand the group that he was addressing, why he was there, why he was talking to them about enemies and what would happen if he betrayed the party.
Mais, Monsieur le co-procureur.
Nevertheless, the co-prosecutor has responded to his own objection, quoting the paragraph and saying that the only manner in which we can talk of the third population movement would be as part of the context of S21 and purges. But the Civil Party is talking of his own population movement, which had nothing to do with S21 and the purges. So I stand by my objection.
President, the objection is overruled. The question, therefore, can be asked, but the chamber instructs the co-prosecutor not to seek the details about the third population movement. So the co-prosecutor can continue or proceed with your question, and I instruct the civil party to answer the question if you still remember. And if you don't remember, you can ask the co-prosecutor to repeat the question. Civil party. At that time, I did not remember. I am forgetful now. President, co-prosecutor, please repeat your question.
Thank you. So, sir, Mr. Civil Party, you talked about stopping in Phnom Penh on a journey. Can you briefly tell us why were you traveling through Phnom Penh? Where were you going? From where to where and why?
The reason that I arrived in Phnom Penh was that the Khmer had evacuated me from Tachay village, Kampong Chumlong commune, Swai Chrum district of Swai Rieng province, for us to arrive in Battambang. But before we arrived in Battambang, I traveled from Swai Rieng to Phnom Penh, and it took me many days and many nights. The first night I traveled from Tachay village to Kraul Ko, and we spent one night there. And during that night there was a heavy rain. It was a rainy season. We had no shelter to take shelter. President, please provide the summary of the accounts. The question was about where you were evicted from and to where. You don't have to elaborate. The question is very short and simple.
Okay, thank you. I believe, Mr. Civil Party, we understood from you that you were traveling from Previang to Battambang with a group of people. At the market, those who were in the audience that Q Sampan addressed, were they all people from the Eastern Zone?
All the people who listened to his speech were evacuees from the East Zone.
And I know you said there were many, but can you give us some kind of estimate about how many people there are? Can you give us just, or a range, approximately?
Based on my estimation, there were thousands of them. There were many of them.
And were these people of all ages and genders?
The evacuees included males and females and children. The children followed their parents.
Was anyone guarding the evacuees? Were there any armed people there?
Yes, at that time there were armed guards who were standing outside the market, around the market, in order to prevent us from escaping back to our homeland.
If you saw when Q Sampan arrived, can you tell us whether he was in a vehicle or how many vehicles there were?
On that day, he arrived with 2 cars or 2 vehicles.
Did he have any bodyguards as far as you could observe?
At that time, he came with a group of people. I did not know who protected whom. There were more than 10 people in that group of delegation.
The materials that were distributed, did they arrive separately? And if so, can you tell us, were they in trucks or in boats? How did the materials arrive?
The materials were transported by a vehicle, and it was unloaded and distributed there.
Did you see those vehicles? Were they trucks or what kind of vehicles?
The vehicles had a military color.
Thank you. For approximately how long did Q Sampan's speech last? How many minutes did he speak?
Q Sampan made a speech for more than half an hour. He made a speech for more than half an hour. Perhaps he was in a hurry to go somewhere, or perhaps it was in a hurry situation that people had to be loaded onto trucks.
Did the people in your group talk about what he said afterwards, after he had left?
At that time, we did not pay much attention to his speech because we were living in a very difficult situation, chaotic situation, and we had to continue our journey, so we did not have time to pay our attention to his speech.
You said that one of the points that Q Sampan made was that if, I don't have your exact quote, but I understood you to say that if you violated or betrayed the party, those who betrayed the party would be killed because they were no use to keep. How did you feel when you heard that?
Thank you. At that time when I heard him said so, I was panicked. I felt afraid that I would commit any wrongdoing because based on my observation, even people who did not commit any wrongdoing were arrested and taken away and they disappeared. And I was shocked and panicked because I did not know what would happen to me in the coming days.
Thank you. I want to finish in the next 5 minutes. That's all the time left. But I want to go back to what you were talking about, being detained with others in the Wat and many of them being former soldiers. During that period of time, after the Khmer Rouge victory in 75, you said that they were looking into backgrounds and what people's previous positions were. Did you observe any difference between how they treated those who were ordinary soldiers and those who were officers?
បាទក្នុងពេលនោះ
At that time, I had a feeling, a frightening feeling. Initially, I told them that I was a civilian. I was not a soldier. But after that, I felt that I had cheated them. I did not tell them the truth. And as a result, I felt so fearful. And many days later, they found out my background. They took me away and imprisoned me, but fortunately I did not die.
When the Khmer Rouge questioned former soldiers, did they ask about what rank they had held? Whether they had been ordinary soldiers or lieutenants, captains, colonels?
Yes, at that time they asked us about many things. For example, what rank in the military I held, and they said that we needed to tell them the truth because they would give us the same rank if we told them the truth. And for those who held a higher rank were taken away to study at a distant place. And for those who held a lower rank were imprisoned at the place with me. For those who held a higher position like second lieutenant or lieutenants, they were taken away to study at the distant place.
Did you know any of these people who said they were higher rank and were taken away to study at a distant place? And if so, did you ever see them again after they were taken away?
At that time, I was not aware of what would happen. I did not know about what happened to others because the Khmer Rouge kept it secret from us for those who told them the truth or not. They did not let us know.
How about your own officers, those you had served under when you were a soldier and you were in the militia? Do you know if any of them survived after the regime? Survived through the DK regime?
Those who were victimized along with me, some of them survived. Some of them I knew, while others I did not know. But for the evacuees from the east to Battambang, there were 70 families who were evacuated, and there were 20 families who survived. And there are many names, but allow me to keep their names confidential.
Mr. Civil Party, thank you very much for your testimony. I believe we still have to take your statement, and I believe my time's up. Thank you, Your Honor. Because my
President, thank you. It is now convenient time for the break, for the adjournment. The chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow 1 December 2016 from 9 a.m. The court will conclude the hearing of civil party to TCCP 1063, and we will also hear testimony of 2 TCW 1069. Court officer, in collaboration with Visu, please make necessary transport arrangement to send the civil party to where he is staying, and please invite him back to the courtroom tomorrow at 9 a.m. Security personnel are instructed to bring Khoo Sampon and Nuon Jie back to the detention facility and have them returned to the courtroom tomorrow morning before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.
សូមជើញក្រោកឈរ